Oh, we're live, dog.
We're live. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the 10-7 MMA show. I'm Huzaifa. We got a really, really cool guest today. It is Jesse on fire. If you guys are in the MMA world. Uh-oh.
You're good.
All right, there we go. Close it. Yeah, so this is really cool. If you guys are in the MMA world and you watch anything related to MMA, I'm sure you heard of Jesse. And this is kind of all started because of Jesse, actually. So I wanted to, if that's cool with you, just take a quick second to explain how we kind of got acquainted and why you sort of, are helping us out, which we really, really appreciate. So Jesse had a sort of like an offer to fans, and you could sort of opt into this offer. And if you do, he said, hey, I'll let you be on one of my shows. And he's sort of gone above and beyond, and also offered to be on our podcast and stuff like that. So this is really cool. And this is finally, and this happened like 2 months ago. So we've been slowly like adding videos, laying the groundwork. And now the time is here, and there's so much news to talk about. So it's kind of perfect. So
yeah, always over deliver. That's the best thing to do.
I feel the exact same way in the business that I run. So I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. There's just so many things to talk about that I want to talk to you about. So we've got a bunch of topics, I think even more than what I had listed in the original video. So why don't we get started? Let's first talk about, it's a little bit of old news at this point, but it's just such a big story. So I thought we could first talk about Conor versus Chandler on The Ultimate Fighter. And I think they're starting to actually, I think it's today is when Conor's getting to Vegas. I think I've heard that through grapevine, something like that. But I think they're just about starting to film. So Jesse and I were talking earlier about this, but like, yeah, well, I know you're boys with Chandler. Like, I think so, but I could be wrong.
Let me ask my dude. See if, see if he could text, like maybe he'll text us back in an hour,
Yeah, of course. No worries. But I mean, it's one of these things where, hold on, let me just see this. We got some people saying, let's go. So it's one of those things where when I first heard it being talked about, and I think you mentioned the same thing, you're like, yeah, there's no way they're going to be able to get Conor. It still doesn't even seem real that it's happening, but it's so exciting. Like what, when you first found out, what were your thoughts?
Well, like I had said, I mean, I thought the odds that they were going to actually get him to do it were nearly impossible, especially because Conor has done The Ultimate Fighter and knows what the time commitment is. Like that's basically what my entire kind of view was based on. Was I've done this. Like, people who don't know, I got married on a reality show I don't know what, 14 years ago. And then had a reality show made about a project that I did in I think that was filmed 2014. But like, so I know the entire reality show process, and it's like, it's so all encompassing. There's no just like, yo, I'm Conor, I'm going to show up when I want, whatever. He's going to have call times. You have to shoot things over and over and over. You sit down and you do your confessionals or whatever, and like you have to say things in a certain way. Then they ask you to say it again. Then they ask you to say it again. They ask you to say it again. They ask you to say it again. And believe me, I nail the takes, and they still would have me say it 7 times. Like, so the time commitment is absolutely overwhelming, and Conor is used to doing whatever he wants. So what that shows is that he's serious about coming back and fighting, and he's serious about doing a really big event. And, it'll be really interesting too, just to see what version of Conor that you get, because it's crazy. I mean, I can't even, Conor just as a person, it's like you see him, and like if he's recording himself, he's out on a bike ride, he gets hit by a car, and then you see him interact with people. He's like the nicest guy ever. You see him interact with his team. He's like the nicest guy ever. He'll have someone, he'll do an interview. He's the nicest guy ever. And then you'll hear a story where it's like, yeah, it was 3 a.m. and he just out of nowhere attacked me. And you're like, what? And then it's like, oh, he's at this award show, and out of nowhere, he just throws a drink at Machine Gun Kelly and tries to attack him. And you're like, who is this person? And so, it'll be interesting to see who shows up, which Conor, and how he plays it, because he really is like a tactical, psychological genius. And when it comes to getting under Michael Chandler's skin, That's not going to be from playing nice, dude. Like the way that you could potentially weaken Michael Chandler a little bit would be to make him mad. And I would anticipate that's what Conor's going to try to do.
Yeah, I mean, like the other thing you think about too, I imagine so as well, and I think that'll make it interesting. But the other thing is, to me, it's like imagine trying to get The Rock or somebody with that amount of mega fame. Conor's one of the most famous people on the planet, and then they're getting him to do this reality show. It's just going to be incredible. And imagine all the little one-liners that we're going to get from it. The show's going to be revived. I mean, it's so incredible. It's like an ultimate fantasy for MMA fans. So
if you had to guess how much he's getting paid, what would you guess?
God, I can't. I mean,
I have no idea, for the record.
I'll put it like this. I mean, you can, if you try and imagine how much value it's going to add to the UFC, like it's almost incalculable, because I think everybody, for the first time in a very, very long time, like everybody's going to be watching the show.
Everyone.
Plus, more people are going to come in and be like, this show is hilarious. Just watch it purely based on entertainment value. And then that fight's going to be insane. So, I mean, I just from a value standpoint of what it means to the UFC, it's got to be an insane amount of money. By the way, oh yeah, go ahead.
No, yeah, I was just gonna say I was turning on our live stream so I could see the public chat. But
yeah, that's what I was.
But yeah, dude, like they again, I have absolutely no idea what they're paying him, but whatever it is, he's worth it for sure. Like in terms of what he's going to bring to the show, and then also especially what the pay-per-view is going to do. That thing, if this show takes off like it should, and the UFC properly promotes the show in addition to, they seem very like kind of doubly focused on Power Slap and UFC, but like they really focus all their energy on promoting the Ultimate Fighter while Conor's on, with Michael Chandler opposite him. I mean, this pay-per-view could be, obscene. Because the other thing about reality TV is there are essentially no rules in terms of what you will put on the show to make the show interesting and to promote it. Like in my show where we got married, they paid Gabrielle's ex-boyfriend from high school to come on the show, crash her bachelorette party, and pretend like he was professing her love to her. And then they had me come in, throw him out. He threw a drink in my face and I pretended to attack him. Like it's 100% fake. Like there's not like, he and I literally were laughing about how we were going to choreograph it before. We put it on TV, and then that's what they put in all the promos. And every person who ever saw the show, the first thing they asked, is that fight real? I'm like, no, dude, it's definitely not real. So like you imagine Conor, Dana, Chandler, and this professional like production team, and they're thinking of things that will go. And that was before the world of like viral TikToks and viral Instagram and viral YouTube. Like now you think of something insane that could happen that will go viral across a bunch of different platforms. The possibilities are endless, especially if you have a bunch of like devious, brilliant strategists like them. I mean, I could think of a million things, and I'm sure they're better than me.
And by the way, so MK in the comment section just said, I bet Conor's getting paid $20 million for the show. I could see that. I could see even more. I could see even more depending on, it's just it's limitless. It's like this whole runway to promote this amazing fight. Plus you're going to get so much viewership. I don't know.
20 million.
I could see it. I think I remember Conor saying and I don't know if this is true, obviously, but this is what he said. He felt like for the Cowboy Cerrone fight back in 2020, in January, that he thought he was going to clear 80 million from that fight. Now that could
be, but for that he's including the value that he is at least I'm pretty sure he's including the value of the proper 12 advertising and then the subsequent value that it would drive. I think there's absolutely no way the UFC is paying him $80 million. None. He had all these, he has all these other things that drive value, like proper 12 in the center of the octagon and all that stuff,
Yeah, for sure. And then let's talk about the fight a little bit, because here's the best part about this whole thing, right? When it first was announced that it was possibly going to be on Tough, I heard Tony Ferguson or Michael Chandler. And just from an interaction standpoint, my thought was like Tony Ferguson would be amazing, just because I feel like he'd give it to him so good in just going back and forth in the verbal sparring. But But from a fight standpoint, the Michael Chandler fight is by far superior. By far, it's probably going to be the best fight of the year. I mean, what are your thoughts on the fight? And by the way, some people are saying, "Is this MMA Guru's replacement?" By the way, big fan of MMA Guru. He's hilarious. But I just wanted to say, I'm just a random MMA fan. My name is Huzaifa, and we started this 10/7 MMA show because I always wanted to talk about it. And shortly, we're going to have the other part of the show, Justin James, who's a professional mixed martial artist. He's going to be joining us soon to give some more commentary. But
yeah, I'm just a guest on their channel.
Yeah. But anyway, so tell me, like, what do you think? What do you foresee in this fight?
So I think, well, not even I think, I could say essentially for sure that Michael Chandler is going to do what he's done in every fight thus far, which is he's going to come out absolute guns blazing, dude. And against Conor, that is super dangerous in the first round. I mean, that is just ridiculously dangerous in the first round because Conor is a surgical ninja assassin early on in the fight, assuming that he trains in a way where he's prepared to throw those long, straight nuclear shots that he did before. Because, before the last two fights, the two Poirier fights are super weird because the first one, so technically the second of their three, but the first one in 2021, Conor had completely written Dustin off. As a matter of fact, let me actually rewind and just talk about Conor's entire career since the Jose Aldo fight. It's like, so Conor knocks out Aldo in 13 seconds. It's one of the biggest moments in UFC history. He fights Nate Diaz twice. We all know what happens there. Then he fights Eddie Alvarez, and he's on top of the world. He knocks out Eddie Alvarez, and then there's like a dividing line in his career because right there, he's like, I'm going to fight Floyd Mayweather. He goes, he gets that done. He fights Floyd Mayweather, trains all boxing, and then he comes back and he's fighting Khabib. Khabib is a completely different animal, obviously, than anything that he's done previously. That fight happens. Then he comes back and he fights Cowboy, and Cowboy is probably the most favorable matchup in UFC history for Conor because he's a soft starter, he's going to stand, and he's easy to counter. And so exactly what happened. And then you get this layoff, and it's like, okay, now we're going to give you Dustin. And what they were doing was they were trying to set Conor up with an automatic victory so they could set up the Khabib rematch. It's hilarious. That's when I first started, not just first started. I was about 7 months into my, actually, I guess leading up to that one, more like 4 or 5 months into my YouTube career. So I had started to get a following, but I wasn't super big, but it was crazy. I've never been more certain of anything. I mean, since then, I've obviously established that I am very good at knowing what's going on the business side. But the number of people who are arguing with me that the reason he was doing that fight was because the UFC wanted to set up the Khabib rematch. They're all, he's not doing the Khabib rematch. I was like, you guys are out of your mind without any shadow of a doubt. That is what Dana is trying to do. And then when he lost, Khabib finally was like, no, I'm really retiring for real. Like, it's over. But the other thing Conor had going was he was training for boxing again because he was going to turn around and do a Manny Pacquiao fight. So he just didn't take Dustin seriously, and then Dustin beat him. And then he comes back in the next one, and he comes out kick heavy, and he breaks his leg, and that one's weird. So you just don't really know what his style is going to be. If he comes out with the style that he had against Eddie Alvarez, where he's being really elusive and he's coming back with long straight punches, then he has a really good chance of winning that fight. If he comes out with that boxing style that he did against Dustin, then Michael Chandler is going to be a fucking nightmare for him because Chandler's super dangerous, huge heavy hooks. Conor needs to use his distance against Michael Chandler, and he needs to be able to use his feet to move fast, So it just depends. I mean, he has the perfect recipe to beat Chandler if he fights like he did against Eddie Alvarez, but he hasn't done that since 2015. So, you know what I mean? Or not 2015, I'm sorry, 2016, 2017. I don't know.
I think it's 2016, but I'm kind of guessing. But what do you think? Okay, so this is a question I have in general. I want to ask Justin too. One thing that drives me crazy in the MMA world is somebody loses and they get written off so quickly. I remember It's crazy to me because like in every other walk of life, you're like, hey, you go through the failure, you go through the struggle, you come out, you emerge, you're better. There's so many examples of this throughout the history. So it's like, but then I feel like as soon as Conor lost the first one, a fair amount of people wrote him off. And then since losing the second one in that freak accident of breaking his foot, breaking his leg, his shin bone, now people are just like talking about him as if he's done. And I get that he has a massive injury and this huge layoff and all that stuff where he can't be progressing. But I just want to know what your thoughts are on that whole narrative. Number one, number two, how did you think he looked up to the point where he had the leg break? Because I thought he looked pretty good. I
thought he looked great. I thought he looked really good. And then if you watch that fight really close and objectively, it's like, okay, so he's throwing kicks. And then Dustin pointed at him where he checked it, and he said he felt Conor's leg crack. And that's when he pointed at him. And then from there, Conor pulled for a guillotine Dustin's a black belt in jiu-jitsu. Guillotine, there are a few people who have such tight guillotines that it makes sense for them to pull if they really have it. But that is that's a submission that you've seen so many guys escape that it's like, yeah, that's just an insane move. I have to believe that he knew his leg was compromised, because as soon as he stood up, he took one step backwards and it broke in half. Yeah. It's not like he's like, oh man, I'm hurt. It was like he took a step back and it snapped in half. You don't go from a structurally sound bone to it breaking in half all at once. It's like just from stepping back. It means it was definitely broken before he pulled. Yeah. And I thought his kicks looked really good. I think Dustin is a dog, though, dude. Dustin's he was able to clip Dustin in the first fight, but that was at 45. He caught him behind the ear, and then Dustin got knocked out one other time. So people just thought oh yeah, he'll knock out Dustin. But aside from those fights, Dustin's been punched a million times, and he just absorbs it. And he's one of those guys that has that really scary confidence where even when he's up against it and other guys start panicking, Dustin's one of these guys where you could just see it on him. Other guys start getting hit like that. They're up against the fence and they're just trying to do their best to not get hit. And you could see that they are panicking, and Dustin's not. Dustin is just Dustin in his mind is, if I just keep absorbing, he's going to slow down. And once I finish, making him miss, he's fucked. And then that has ended up being the case in tons of his fights, dude. Where that confidence is an incredible weapon, dude. Just to stay upright. And then when guys gas out, it's like, man, there's nothing worse than being gassed out and having a person in front of you who is not tired. It's in grappling, kickboxing, Muay Thai, MMA, it doesn't matter. It's the worst, dude. Yeah, it's must be a terrifying moment. Even I know from sparring, when I'm tired, it's scary. But that's just light sparring. Yeah. So, anyways, I can't wait for this fight. I'm so excited, and I do think it's ridiculous to be writing Conor off so aggressively when he lost to such a beast like Dustin Poirier. Most people lose to Dustin, so whatever. But I cannot wait for that. Okay. By the way, Justin's going to be joining in about 10 minutes. But I know you did an awesome video today on the whole IV scandal for regarding Islam Makhachev, and I'd love to chat about not that one. I'd love to chat about the Islam IV scandal. And I know you made you mentioned you made the video prior to Eugene Berriman's interview. Is that right? That's correct. Yeah, I saw Berriman. Well, what happened was I filmed it, and I was editing. I was putting the last touches on the editing, and then someone sent me the Berriman interview where Berriman, talked about how solid their evidence actually was. And I was like, I'm not reshooting this video. And so I actually I had one little piece of the video where I had the most recent information I had on that at the time when I filmed it, which was that Berriman had told someone that I'm close with that they had really the way I heard it was bulletproof evidence that he took an IV. And I just cut that part out, which was not very long. And, because Berriman on Ariel's show said that there were holes in their evidence. Apparently, I don't even, I just saw that one clip where he was like, there's holes there. He said that the really important thing is he advised Hooker not to go public with it, and Hooker did it anyway. Yeah. And by the way, it'll be interesting to see if this gets demonetized, because I found out if you say Hooker, YouTube seems to think that doesn't mean his last name.
Damn.
But I said at the very beginning of the video. Yeah. So usually, like, if it takes a while, then they're fine. But like,
it's fine. We're not monetized yet, anyways. We're too.
Oh yeah. So hooker.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he said. I mean, he told him not to do it, and he did it anyway. So that was. I mean, that's just. I don't know. I don't know what on earth. I don't know why he would have taken it public if they weren't positive. But the thing is, what you learn there now is the best policy in all of these situations is to shut the fuck up. Like. Yeah. If I'm talking about Islam didn't say shit. Islam has not said one fucking thing about it. His team, the only thing that I saw them say was Magomedov, whatever his name is, Magomedov, said that the bruise on his arm was from the mandatory blood test prior to weigh-ins, which makes sense because the bruise was there for weigh-ins. And obviously, that's before they would rehydrate anyway. And then last night there was that thing where Ali Abdelaziz posted the thing saying that it's legal to take the 2 liter to up to 2 to 3 liters as long as a nurse administers it. And then he took it right down, which means someone must have hit him up and told him that that's not actually the rule. But the bottom line is this, dude, the UFC wants this to go away. No one has admitted on the Islam side that he did it. Like, no one said, yes, he did it. Ali putting up that it's legal is not an admission that Islam did it. It's like, it's just like, even if he did, it's legal anyway. But, and
even Eugene said, okay, so maybe the 1 liter or 2 liters is incorrect, but Eugene himself said 100 milliliters is allowed. And then, but the question is, did they go past it? Like, once it's in, do you go past 100 milliliters or not? And from my perspective, it didn't seem like he was overly bothered by it. Like, for example, it maybe seemed as though, hey, we recognize that this is a thing. I don't know. And I'd love to get your thoughts on this. Maybe we recognize this is a thing, but we would never do that. Even though it's permitted within these guidelines, or if you get permission from the UFC, perhaps you could do more. It almost seemed like it had that feel versus like, hey, this is black and white. Like, they did something where they cheated versus they did something where we wouldn't have done that.
So maybe. I don't know. I mean, the only answer that you can have if you're Eugene Berryman on Ariel's show is, yeah, we would never do that. In reality, like I said in the video, like, I don't condone cheating or anything like that, but like, when you're talking about rehydrating a fighter, this rule is fucking stupid, dude. It's a stupid fucking rule. The reason that they did it was they wanted to discourage against really, really huge heavyweight cuts, but it's unenforceable. That's the whole point. It's like, the shit's fucking unenforceable. If, like, you know how easy it is to administer an IV? Like I was saying in the video.
Yeah,
like, you any idea how easy it is to administer an IV? And like, so lots of the fights happen in Vegas, right? Lots of the fighters live in Vegas. You don't even need to have someone on your team know how to administer an IV. You just need to know someone who's a nurse or nurse practitioner or whatever. You go, you weigh in, you go to whatever private room that you have, and they administer an IV and rehydrate. Like, how are they possibly going to know? It's like, it's just dumb. There's no way to enforce it. And honestly, on my side, like, ONE FC has a good way of doing it. They test the the hydration when they weigh in, but taking away the person's ability to rehydrate via IV is doing the opposite of what you're actually meaning to do. Like, someone's not going to drop out of a fight because they have a big weight cut. They're still going to do the weight cut. And all that's going to happen if you don't let them IV rehydrate is they're going to be more dehydrated when they fight. They're going to be more prone to brain damage. They're going to run out of gas easier. They're going to get hurt more easily. So, like, it's dumb. It's a stupid fucking rule, dude. It doesn't make any sense. And it sounds like the UFC is like, yeah, we don't really enforce that. But then, like I was saying in the video, the big development is that via the Australian Combat Sports Athletic Board, they have a no tolerance policy on IV rehydration completely. It's completely blackballed via that commission. Yeah. So it's another reason why, again, in the future, I mean, I could name lots of specific examples where if you get accused of something that you're guilty of, or, I mean, yeah, primarily if there's a possibility that you may have been involved, shut the fuck up, dude. Like, wait until you absolutely have to discuss it, because now anything that they said is it can only basically work against them. Once Eugene Berryman goes, there's holes in the story. The end. It's like, all right, so shut up. Like, if you don't know for sure, then shut up. So now anything that they said, could come back and bite him. But I just think everyone wants it to go away. Everyone wants to see the rematch, dude. No one wants him to get fucking suspended.
Agreed. But like even in the worst, so that it was such an interesting point that you brought up on your channel about that idea of like, hey, we got the UFC rules and we also have the Australian Commission. But in the worst case scenario, let's say it's a violation of the Australian Commission rules, but it was allowed by the UFC. It's not like they're going to take the belt away in that case, right? It would just maybe he'd be banned from fighting in Australia for a certain amount of time. Would that be what you would think would happen? Or
so Strickland's burner is saying that he has proof. Hey, dude, you have my email, don't you? Email it to me, dude. RealJesseOnFire@gmail. Send it to me, and I'll if it's legit, I'll make a video about it, obviously. But yeah, Justin's on. Why don't you introduce Justin? We can continue the conversation.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so Justin is joining the show. Justin is also the second part of the 10-7 MMA show. And hold on, let me there we go. Yeah. And so anyways, Justin is a professional mixed martial artist. He's fought in the UFC. He trains out of Extreme Couture with, he's known Eric Nixick for a really long time. So super excited to have him join. And Justin, just to get you up to speed, we're talking about the Islam IV scandal.
Oh, what's going on, guys?
What's up, Justin?
Hey, what's up, Justin? So I think.
Hey guys, sorry, I'm just getting out of class right now. I just tried to jump in as quick as I could.
Yeah, no worries.
Eric,
there it goes.
Eric, you mind if I go in your office? You do mind? Thanks. Sorry, just getting done. I'm coaching a cardio kickboxing class over at Extreme Couture. Got Chris Curtis with me, Eric Nixick, Kai Kamaka, Casey O'Neill, so on and so forth. Give me a second, guys. One second.
Yeah, no worries. But yeah, Jesse, what do you think about that? Like that idea that, I mean, in the worst case scenario, right? It's not like he's going to lose the belt.
Wait, why would he not lose the belt?
That's my question. And I could be wrong about that because my question is basically, let's say if it was in violation of the Australian Commission rules, but it was allowed by the UFC and it was given permission by the UFC, would it just be would it then say, hey, it's invalidated completely, or it's like, all right, well, you're just banned from fighting in Australia for the next year or something?
Yeah, I don't know how that plays out. I mean, if I would think that I would think it would be a no contest. Like, I don't think that like Volkanovski becomes the 55 champion. I don't think, but I don't know. Like, because like when Jon Jones popped dirty after he beat DC got the belt, but that was because DC had the belt prior to the fight. So the no contest led to him getting the belt back, right. So I don't really know. I don't know how that would work.
That's crazy. Well, I hope nothing happens. And by the way, now that we have Justin on, I think it's the perfect time. Let's actually recap. I want to talk about that fight. One of the most incredible fights I've ever seen in my life. And I've been trying to listen to everything in terms of people's predictions. It's a little bit controversial, although I think most people are on one side. But Justin, I know you rewatched the fight last night. I'd love to hear your take on it.
I thought it was an incredible fight, just like you said. Definitely one time for the ages. Now, I can't say I thought it was a robbery. At no point in the fight did I think Volkanovski won the fight. I thought he had some incredible moments. Don't get me wrong. He stuffed some of his takedowns. He rocked him a couple times. But at no point did I think that he did enough to win the fight. I thought he lost the first round. I thought he lost the second round. I thought the third round was a coin flip. I thought he lost the fourth round and won the fifth round, in my personal opinion. I know a lot of people are arguing about that, about significant strikes landed. But, I mean, Islam really just controlled the fight. Whether it was on the ground, I can't remember how much control time he had. But that's a big factor of control time, of being on top of somebody. Especially, he wasn't just on top. He was on Volkanovski's back, had the hooks in for in the fourth round. He had it for like 3 minutes. At no point. Oh, speaking of legends, like we got our guy Chris Curtis coming in to check me out.
Hey,
yeah, boy,
give me a little dance. But yeah, at no point, I saw Joe Rogan was really upset with the decision. I was totally fine with it. Like I said, I thought Volk had some incredible moments, but I mean, there wasn't enough to sway me that Volk won the fight.
I could tell you that I know for 100% sure that off the air the next morning that Schaub and Rogan talked, and they were like, but like, how objective was our viewpoint? They're like, we were drunk as fuck when we said that. So I don't know how confident they still feel about the decision, but I agree with you, dude. I thought that I had it scored exactly the way that you did, where I thought, I mean, obviously the 2 rounds where Islam's on his back the whole round. That's obvious. And then I had 3 rounds to 2 with the, second and third pretty close. And it's just one of those things where, like, I think what swayed everyone's opinion so much is because you can't interpret anything without your preparation kind of coming into your viewpoint. Like, it's like, if you go into a movie, like, this is going to be the greatest fucking movie ever. It's like, and it's good. You're like, where everybody prepared that Islam was the most dominant grappler in the history of the world. Volkanovski is not known for his grappling. And so when Volkanovski was very competitive with Islam grappling wise, I think people were just like, it blew their minds. And then obviously when a fight ends and one of the guys is completely gassed underneath the other fighter who's fresh, that's a huge, powerful image to end the fight. You know what I mean? Where it's like, if this goes 7 rounds, who wins? But it's like, that's not how you score fights, man. It's
I am on exact same point with you. I thought his wrestling defense was incredible. I thought his submission defense was incredible. But again, if you're on the defense for the majority of the fight, I mean, you're not winning. And it's great he didn't get finished. It's great he didn't get choked. Like I said, it really surprised me from his defense. But again, defense doesn't always win fights. You need to dominate. And it's, again, we're scoring every round. It's not. As a whole, if it goes 2 more rounds, of course, Volkanovski started pouring it on and his gas tank was incredible, but it's a 5-round fight. And you got to win 3 of the 5 to win the fight.
How crazy is Volkanovski's gas tank, man?
It's crazy.
I mean, I've had my last fight was my 75th MMA fight. And I don't know how these guys do it, man. It's like, I feel I train with the best of them, but I tell you what, at the end of 25 minutes at that pace, and it's not just a striking pace. It's the lactic acid buildup and stuffing takedowns, scrambling, having somebody on your back, extending you, stretching all your muscles. Like this guy's a different breed. And, these guys' gas tank is just incredible. I mean, fighting for 25 minutes at that high of a pace in the UFC is just incredible.
It is nuts, man. And I mean, it's so intimidating. I was just talking about this with someone. I can't remember if I was on screen or not when I was talking about this, but like, gosh, man, it's got to be so intimidating going up against a guy like that, because you just know, you're like, all right, so how fresh am I going to be 19 minutes into this fight? And it's almost a certainty that we're going to get to minute 19 of this fight with this guy, and he's going to be that fresh. It's like almost equally as intimidating as going up against Francis, where you're like, God, I hope he doesn't catch me with anything. It's like with Volk, you're like, fuck, man, being gassed and having a fresh guy on you is the worst thing ever.
There's no worse feeling than that, man. That's my biggest fear. I don't mind getting kicked in the head, knee in the face, punched, elbowed, but getting tired is, to me, my biggest fear in a fight, man. And obviously those guys don't even, that probably doesn't even cross their mind. But we're talking about the 2 best pound for pound fighters in the world. I don't even think that plays a part in their mental process. I have the state tournament this Saturday with some of my high school wrestlers that I coach. And, the one kid tells me, he's like, oh, my finals match, I don't think I can break this kid. He's not going to break. And, that's the kind of mentality I believe these guys have. They don't even think that they're going to get tired. They're out there to put it all on the line and set the highest pace they can.
Totally. Islam, like, that was the thing too, where the interpretation of that fight, whereby people are going, oh, maybe Islam's not actually that good. You're like, dude, Volkanovski's the number 1 pound for pound fighter in the world, and he's up 10 pounds. That's not like, it's not like going from 85 to heavyweight, dude. It's 10 pounds, and he's run through everyone at 45. I personally think Volkanovski beats every other person at 55. What do you think?
Absolutely. I just think he's really showed his well-roundedness. He's not just a striker, but he can defend the wrestling. He can wrestle. I mean, it's going to be tough for anybody to beat him. In the UFC, especially in the top 5, anybody can get caught at any moment. But from a technical standpoint, in the class that I just coached, after watching the fight for the first time last night, I'm watching Volkanovski's footwork, and I'm implementing that into my classes now. The way he switches to his unorthodox stance, throw that right hook to the left straight. I mean, he's just an incredible fighter. He's so diverse. He's getting better. The thing is, he's so young in the sport. You know,
Yeah.
I've been fighting since 2007, man. My body is weathered. He's only been fighting. I don't even know when his debut was, but I know he doesn't have that
10
many
years.
miles on besides his max Hall. I mean, in the UFC he does. But earlier than that, you know, with rugby and stuff, I think he still has room to get better. His wrestling is always improving. It showed in this fight, and it's only going to get better. I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing these guys separate and come back in 2 or 3 fights and have it out again.
Yeah. What about, dude, speaking of guys that keep getting better, what about Yair Rodriguez?
Well, that was a big surprise for me, you know, training with Josh Emmett and how tough he is, or I have trained with him, but how tough he is and how durable he is to get in there. And Yair got Yair Rodriguez, I can't even talk today. Rodriguez getting the finish on a game opponent like that again, just constantly getting better, man. It's just the evolution of the sport. You either get better or you fall behind.
Yeah. And what's Yair Rodriguez? He's 29?
I'm not sure how old he is.
Hey guys, I had a quick question. I want to get your thoughts too. Going back to the Islam Volk fight. So I thought that, and this kind of goes back into this whole IV scandal. Right when I saw the fight start, I thought Islam looked slow. Like I thought something looked off, and he didn't look like as fresh or as energetic as he did against Oliveira. Then I heard on the Weighing In podcast, like Josh Thompson, who's boys with Islam, I think he's trained on his team. He said something about the weight cut. This is before any of the IV stuff was being talked about, or he didn't mention it. But he talked about the weight cut being really brutal. I just want to get your thoughts. Like, did either of you notice anything or feel like, hey, something's off with? And then he mentioned that at the end of the fight. He's like, a lot of things happened before the fight. Did you guys notice anything?
Go ahead.
I did not. Honestly, I was just so taken aback by how good both of them were, where I was extremely impressed by Islam's striking. And then I was probably even more so impressed by Volkanovski's ability to defend against Islam's grappling. I just kept chalking everything up to, these are the number 1 and number 2 guys in the world. And they make each other look like they're not as dominant as they would against anyone else.
You know, I'm on the same page with that. It's hard to say. I mean, weight cuts definitely do play a factor. And, you know, honestly, I've done an IBV before, not in the UFC, but prior to getting to the UFC, and it didn't make me feel any better. It actually made me feel worse because it put so much fluid into my body. I felt sluggish. So to go to your point,
really,
like, yeah, there could be a sluggish point there. When I cut to 145 on the smaller WXC scene, I got an IV after. I was 185 pounds the very next day, and I just felt terrible. Trash. To your point, Hazufa. Yeah, that might have made him look a little sluggish. Personally, I don't know him well enough or his style well enough. I'm not a big enough a fan to watch all his fights. Be like, oh, he looks different in this fight than he does his others. But I personally, I didn't see anything that really stuck out until the 5th round.
So you went from 45 to 85 in a day. How many
overnight? Yes.
How many bags?
I'll say 180 to be safe, but yeah, dude, it was sick. So like, I weighed in at 140. I actually missed weight. I made it 147. I went to my hotel, got IV'd up, got 2 bags of IV. Well, what happened was, cutting so much weight, I lost 30 pounds in 4 weeks, or no, it was 6 weeks. And the doctor said that my body was so dehydrated that I couldn't go to the bathroom. I couldn't get a sweat going during the warm up, that my body was just clung onto that weight so tight. Because it was afraid of losing any more fluids. So, I mean, yeah, I definitely felt sluggish there. When I fought Gavin Tucker in the UFC, I went from 185 to 145 in 4 weeks. I hydrated back up with, Pedialyte. I mean, that's just the UFC, man. I didn't want to take that fight. I wasn't trying to be a tough guy, but that was my job at the time. And if you watch that Gavin Tucker fight, man, it's, again, back to the sluggish, back to the overhydration. I couldn't get a sweat going, couldn't go to the bathroom. It was a disgusting feeling, especially being in there when you're getting picked apart and you can't even move.
Yeah, man. Yeah, that is nuts, man. When it's crazy. Like my body fluctuates so much based on random shit. I was just telling Danny Molina, one of Anthony Smith's coaches yesterday, that so I competed in the Austin Open IBJJF maybe 2.5 weeks ago, and I fought at heavyweight where the max is 207 in a gi. And so I was just eating as much, I was trying to stay as heavy as possible because I'm not normally that heavy. And afterwards, I cut out this one thing that I was eating that had this fucking dye shit. My wife was going, dude, this whatever chemical that's in this is awful for you. And I cut that out. And in 11 days, without doing anything different, I dropped 12 pounds. Just from that dye, I was retaining 12 pounds of water. Or I changed nothing else. It's like, I mean, the body's crazy, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Crazy. All right. What do you guys think? Should we move on to Jon Jones in this upcoming March 4th card? Me and Justin have been talking about it as well. He might even come down to LA to watch it with for my fight party. So that's super exciting. But I cannot wait for this fight. And I think it's so interesting too, because it's coming on the heels of all of this pound for pound discussion, controversy, whatever you want to call it. And then Jon Jones is all of a sudden being reinserted back into the mix. I wonder if it was like planned out like this on this timeline. But yeah, I don't know. What do you guys think? What do you guys see for this matchup?
Dude, I will say that if it were literally any other fighter, I think I could say that relatively safe, like literally any other fighter, I would say I can't see how a person who's taken this much time off and is up a weight class, up 40, 50 pounds, can be the favorite against someone as nasty as Cyril Gane. But it's Jon Jones. And so it's like, and also the kind of sneak peeks into what his camp has looked like, through like, Chael and talking to Henry Cejudo and them, like Chael talking to Henry Cejudo, and they're like, everyone says he's better now. So, I mean, but nonetheless, Cyril Gane has one loss in the UFC, and it was to being unprepared against Francis on the grappling side. And it's Francis, like Francis is a terrifying fighter. And as obviously, he's really well-rounded now also. People just discounted his wrestling just because of the Stipe fight from 5 years ago. And I would imagine if Cyril Gane has any, kind of strategic method behind his training, he's probably done a lot of grappling training since then. So, I mean, Jon Jones can kick you from really far away. But Cyril Gane moves like a middleweight. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting for sure.
When talking about Jon Jones, they throw the word GOAT around. He's the greatest of all time. He has taken some time off, but he's still an athlete, and he's still training. He's still gaining weight. I'm not really – well, you got to get me like that. Casey O'Neill just got me with the – but anyways, he's taken this time off. Maybe he's been remotivated his coaching of putting on all the weight. But I don't think this fight is going to be as competitive as people think. Jon Jones is healed, but Francis Ngannou, he showed what to do to beat Cyril Gane, and Jon Jones's wrestling is I'm not going to say that because I'm at the gym, but I mean, Jon Jones has been wrestling his whole life. His wrestling is phenomenal. And, like I said, Francis paved the way of, hey, look, you can out wrestle this guy and put him on his back. He's going to be a fish out of water. I think even if Cyril Gane has worked his wrestling and his grappling since this Francis Ngannou fight, I still don't think it's going to be enough to beat Jon Jones. I mean, I don't know how big Jon is right now, but the pictures I've seen, he looks massive. And he's wrestling. He's not taking time off. And not to mention, he can be a long striker. And, maybe he takes him down, tries to wear on him in the first couple of rounds, and then wants to strike with him to knock him out to show him how much improvement he's made over the last couple of years. It's going to be an exciting fight, I'm sure. But I don't think it's going to be – I really think it's a great comeback fight for Jon Jones because, again, Ngannou showed the way to beat him, and Jon Jones is awesome.
Do you think Jon Jones was gaslighting DC with that tweet last night? Did you see his tweet?
I did see his tweet. It's funny that you say that because I don't get on Twitter very much about how he's a great commentator. And is that the tweet you're talking about?
Yeah, he's like, I know you'll be fair and unbalanced. I would love for you to commentate my fight. And I was like, dude,
I can see it that way too. And there's been a couple things that Jon has said or done that have really he's trying to play like this nice guy role, like he's changed and this and that. But I think that's all it was. I don't know if. I don't know. From having a grudge with certain people that I've fought, right. Usually after the fight's over, usually that grudge is gone. And I know they had a great history, and it was a great rivalry for the sport. Two incredible fighters. I'd like to think that they're past that. I mean, we're adults and stuff, and maybe he was sincere. I mean, DC is an incredible commentator. After being called out by. Why can't I think of his name right now? The 35-pounder called him out on his studying his Dominic Cruz. Thanks, Mama.
Dominic Cruz.
I think he's probably taking it more serious now. I think he's an incredible commentator, and I think Jon Jones may have been sincere.
Maybe. I love those guys' rivalry, man. That's like, it's so
there's nothing
great.
like it. There's nothing like it.
Yeah, it was crazy. And like, but and also too, right? What do you guys think? I feel like Jon Jones has to be ultimately motivated, because this is the one fight where he can just propel himself to this massive level that will be essentially untouchable. But if he does win, which it seems, I would say too, I agree. And by the way, I'm not nearly the expert that you guys are, but like, I do feel Jon Jones is probably going to be pretty nicely favored here. But if he does come away with the victory, I mean, where do you guys stand? I know this is just a fun debate, but where do you stand on pound for pound? I mean, is it immediately he's there, number one?
Probably. I mean, if he's never lost, he retires, or not retires, but takes the time off light heavyweight, comes back. And Cyril, I would say, is squarely the second best heavyweight, and aside from Jon. And so if he beats him, that's a hard argument to make, but hard argument to kind of argue against. But that'll just start all the stuff of like, everybody's going to want to, I mean, at least all the fans that know anything are going to want to see him fight Francis, obviously. And, I'm sure, like, I mean, you would know better than us just what Francis's next move is, but I hope Francis goes and gets an enormous paycheck and then comes back and fights Jon Jones, and we get to see both things happen.
I really respect Francis for what he's done, especially, turning down the $8 million. And, I've heard him say that, hey, look, I've already made more money than I ever imagined. That $8 million is nothing. He's really went in for the fighter union. I respect that. And, I guess it's, I'm a WWE fan, man. I got into MMA because of Stone Cold Steve Austin. And, I feel like the UFC is kind of transitioning that way. They're making these storylines because, that you don't have the Conor McGregor, Nate Diaz rivalry. You don't have the Jon Jones DC rivalry anymore. So they're trying, I just feel like this is a setup for Francis to go away. And then when Jon Jones is the leader, Francis is going to come back and take it on. That's not official. That's just my thoughts of it. But I don't think Jon Jones is the number one pound for pound fighter. I mean, he's a great fighter. He's one of the greatest of all time. Don't get me wrong. But this is why I don't think that. I feel heavyweight it's one of the weaker weight classes. I mean, it's a lot of, more power. But I mean, I just don't think you can say he's better than Volkanovski or Islam because of the well-roundedness. I mean, these guys are just dynamic. They're fast. They're strong. And they're going against the best fighters in the world. And like I said, I feel like heavyweight's a little bit weaker on that side, so it's tough to say. But with that being said, what is he, 22-1 or something crazy like that? Let's see how he looks when he comes back. I mean, if he goes out there and gets a win in a lackluster performance, it's going to be tough for me to put him in top pound for pound. But if he goes out there and starches Cyril Gane, all right, now we got something to talk about. But again, if he just goes out there and wins some kind of boring decision, we'll see. And let's see how he looks with all this extra mass. He's going to be carrying around that extra weight, that extra muscle. In turn, he needs more cardio. He's going to have to survive for 25 minutes. Cyril Gane he's not doing anything different. He's staying the same person. He's just going in as normal. Jon Jones, again, packing on all that weight might play a factor too. He might be a little bit slower, or he might be a step behind as well.
Yeah, that's true. And, on the pound for pound conversation where, the pound for pound rankings came out, Islam was bent out of shape that he was still number 2. But I actually meant to do this video yesterday and I just forgot to do it. But like, to me, that's a complete no brainer that Volkanovski's number 1, because Volkanovski's the most, I mean, I think now it's safe to say he's the most dominant 45 pounder ever. And he goes up to 55 and he's fighting against the objective best 55er in the world. And it's a razor thin decision that a lot of people think that he won. So that's like the definition of pound for pound.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like it just seemed like that was an answer that was pretty clear. I mean, if Islam went up to 70 and he won, then, different conversation, but
I agree with you 100%, Jesse. I mean, you're talking about 145 and prior to that, he's beaten Max Holloway 3 times. Like I actually thought Max was going to be unbeatable in the striking department. Volkanovski went out there and put it on him. Not once, not twice, but 3 times. I know they were all close fights, but again, Max Holloway is one of the best in the world. He's top 5 in the world, in my opinion, as well. Like he's consistently not just beating top 5 guys in his own weight class, but top 5 pound for pound fighters. Yeah. I mean, Islam is an incredible fighter. Again, don't get me wrong. Of course, he's incredible, but let's look at his resume compared to Volkanovski. I don't think they're comparable. a top 5 spot, no question. But I want to see him test a little bit more. I want to see him come back from some adversity. This is the first time Islam, I feel, has seen any adversity besides his 1 loss out of his 23 wins or so.
It's true.
Volkanovski has had adversity. He's been up a weight class. He's been dropped. He's been rocked. I mean, he keeps coming back. This guy's hungry. He's Volkanovski to me is the best pound for pound fighter in the world, and nobody's going to change that opinion of me of that to me right now.
And that was such a fun fight to watch. I was saying in the video that I did right after, like the morning after the event, where it was like, I've never seen a person do like kind of capture the attention and imagination of the fan base more after so many fights in the UFC than he did that night. It was like Volkanovski's fought in the UFC a million times. Everybody thinks they kind of understand what he is. And then you put him in a pound for pound #1 fight in Perth in Australia. And the way that he not only fought, but also the way that he kind of engaged with the crowd throughout that entire fight was just like I'm like, I will never root against this guy ever again. I don't care who he's fighting against. I will root for him no matter what, always now.
He won me over, man. I was always a fan before, but as of right now, Volkanovski is my #1 favorite fighter.
Yeah.
And I'll say too, I was definitely a fan, but I'm a huge Islam and Khabib fan. So I kind of will say that's where I was leaning, but it was incredible. Amazing. One of the best fights I've ever seen. And I'm on the same page with you guys. By the way, I want to thank Jesse so much for taking all this time out of his schedule to join us. And with that being said, I know he's got a busy schedule. So I was going to take us to our final topic, which is somebody that I am very, very curious to hear both of your thoughts about. I've said this too. I made a video about why I think MMA is my favorite sport, or why MMA is the best sport on the planet. And one of the reasons why I love the sport so much is because of all the amazing interviews where you kind of get to hear the fighter mindset, it's just such a trip. I love hearing Bo Nickal's interviews, especially when he goes on Ariel's show. And I think he's got just such a sort of like solid mindset. He just seems so confident and comfortable in himself, but he's making his I think it's the first time he's on the main card, and it's on March 4th. This card is going to be insane. Valentina Shevchenko's also on the card too. But anyways, what are your guys' thoughts on Bo Nickal as a rising prospect?
Oh man, I think the sky's the limit for him. And what I was like, I'm usually of the opinion that bringing guys up cautiously is the best thing, but in his case, just because of who he is and how incredible his wrestling pedigree is and how good he's looked thus far, I can get behind them throwing him a bananas like fight with someone like Hamzat or something, where you just throw him right in there, because if he loses, who cares? It's like the very beginning of his career, and he'll be able to rebuild. And at the same time, if he's able to put on a competitive fight against Hamzat right now, I don't know if it's just because I'm so kind of deep in the sport that makes sense to me to do that, or like where it seems like a waste of a matchup for kind of the casual fan. But man, that would be incredible. I mean, it's basically like that's what they did with Hamzat with Burns. I was at that fight. I was at the front row at 273 in Jacksonville. Oh my God, man. That's if I ever am inside the auditorium for a fight like that ever again, I will be. I basically like injured my hands because I was in the front. So there's a table right in front of me, and I was smashing this table so hard with like a ring on my finger. Like I literally I hurt myself like for weeks. I was like, fuck, my finger still hurts, man. Like the whole place. I've never been in a place that collectively lost its shit like it did for that fight, man. It's just incredible.
That was like the first fight back, right? From that was like the first in-person live event or something, like a big one after the. No, am I wrong about that?
No, because I went to 270, 271, 272, and 273. That was 273.
Okay.
Yeah. Talking about Bo Nickal's wrestling pedigree, I think he's a phenomenal wrestler. And I don't want to say I disagree with you, but I would like to see him built up a little bit. I'd like to see him tested. If you throw him in there with Khamzat, let this guy make some money first. I think getting, easing him in, maybe this is just the fighter in me talking how I wish, my career would work out is, ease him in, get him some money, get him some wins, get him some confidence. You go throw him up there against Khamzat and he gets his ass beat. It's not going to be good for him. Plus, it's going to be only one payday for him. Get him 2-3 wins. Get him some money in his pocket. Get him some momentum rolling. He still has to evolve as a striker. And going against Khamzat, he could get injured. Obviously, you could get injured in any sport, but we're talking about a real, true killer.
Well, we lost him.
Yes.
Sorry, someone just called.
Okay.
From a management standpoint, if I was his coach or his manager, I'd want to ease him into that because, again, if he goes in there and beats Khamzat now, yeah, he's going to be in title contention. He's going to get more money, but he's not going to have any more. All the rest of his fights are all going to be really tough fights from here on. He has so much more. He has so much more to learn, and he has to evolve his style so much more before he gets in the top 5, top 10 guys.
That's fair. I thought of it because he asked for that fight, and I was like, "Give it to me, dude. Give it to me."
But with that being said, I mean, he's game. I'm sure if he was presented the fight, he's not going to turn it down, especially because he asked for it. But I think that's just I guess I look back on my career and I wish I would have done things a little bit differently. And so when I look at a young prospect coming up, especially with him with so much talent, I just would hate to see him do it wrong and end his career prematurely.
How old is he? How old is he? Was he 27?
I want to say 26 or 27. Let me check now.
Mid-20s.
He did say, by the way, on Ariel's show, he's like, "Yep, I'm in no rush to do." He's like, "Yeah, he's 27 now." He's like, "I'm just chilling. Like, give me the fights, and I'm happy to do a slow build." So I think that's his standpoint as well.
He should just do it. Like, I mean, if he wants to do, like you said, the money, just do it like O'Malley. He's like, "I'll fight.
Yeah,
I'll fight whoever, according to what I'm being paid on my contract."
And he's one of those guys. Sorry to interrupt, but like from a fan, like a super fan perspective, like I'll watch him. I don't care who he's fighting. I literally do not care. I'm so excited that he's on the main card. So from that standpoint too, I think it makes sense for now.
Looking at him, Bo Nickal, but we're all diehards. This is my life.
Yeah.
You guys are diehard fans, so you know who he is. The typical fan, the average fan, they're going to see him and be like, "Who's this guy? Oh, he looks great." So you throw him up against Khamzat. Most people are going to see, Khamzat just being given another guy to beat up on, not knowing any better. Like I said, I'd like to see him get some momentum going first, get a fan base behind him. I think it's a smart business sense to give him the Sean O'Malley treatment because he has that much potential. He has an incredible wrestling pedigree. His striking is only going to get better. It's not going to get worse. Give him that Sean O'Malley treatment. Get him a couple wins. Get the fans behind him. Get fans excited about him. At least the casual fan. Get the casual fan excited about him. Then throw him in with Khamzat, Colby, a top 10, top 5 guy, and see where this guy really stands.
Have you trained? You've trained with Khamzat there, yeah?
I've never personally grappled with him, but yeah, we've been on the same mat. He trains here with Eric a lot.
Yeah, I remember Eric told when Khamzat was when he was battling the virus, and then they came to America and they put him on prednisone. And Eric told me that he came to that Monday practice anyway on prednisone, and then that was the day when he was coughing up blood. He's like, "I guess I retire." And it was like he wouldn't listen to anyone. They're like, "Dude, just stop training for like 2 days, man. Just stop." He's like, "No, I'm not going to ever stop training ever."
Absolutely,
he's a savage, man.
That's a sweet fight that I want, or I'm waiting for that fight announcement. Who they're going to pair Khamzat up with next? I cannot wait. That will be insane.
Well, where's Colby?
I know he's like complete disappear. That'd be the dream. Colby versus Khamzat. Unbelievable. Think about the entire press conference every day.
I think Colby's like a professional poker player now. I heard he won some big tournament down in Florida, some big poker tournament down in Florida, and that's the last I've heard of him. I haven't heard any potential fights coming up, but Colby and Khamzat, I think is an incredible fight to make. I think the fans would love that fight, and the way Colby is on the mic and the way Khamzat is smish. I think it's gonna be a great sell for the UFC as well.
Yeah, it'd be good. And if not Colby, I'll take Bilal all day. Bilal and Khamzat is a great fight now too. I'm trying to think who else, because you're gonna have Leon and Kamaru fight. I guess probably Bilal and Khamzat. I don't understand. I just don't understand. Is Colby not want to fight, or is he tied up and suing Masvidal? And it's like there's just no explanation why he's not active at all. He's not even asking for fights. He's not doing anything.
It's gotta be the lawsuit. It has to be. I mean, what about the idea of if Leon versus Usman goes down and they're able to turn around pretty quickly? What about the idea of Khamzat just going straight up for a title shot?
I think the timing will matter because, so let's say hypothetically that Leon beat Kamaru again, and somehow that backs up against Conor and Chandler, and Conor is able to win in really highlight fashion at 70. I think Paradigm is going to try to put Leon and Conor together for a title shot because that's obviously the most favorable matchup at 70 for Conor if he's going to take a title shot. Kamaru's a nightmare for him, obviously.
Right.
So, it'll be interesting. Connor's like the whatever the jam something in the gears. Like he's always the wild card. You just never know.
That's true.
Yeah.
It's to talk about Khamzat just for one more second, there was rumor of him going up to middleweight after missing weight his last fight. You guys put any light on
that's
that?
right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. He's got a lot of favorable matchups at middleweight, man.
Big time. I think middleweight's a little shallow right now. And after watching him with Burns, you were fortunate to watch it live, man. What an incredible fight that was. I was watching it on my phone, giddy about it. With that being said, going up to 185, I mean, I don't know if it'll be his permanent home there, making an easier weight cut for him or what, but 170, either at 170 or 185, that guy's going to be problems for somebody.
Yeah, and you look at the Robert Whittaker and Izzy fight at 271, and Izzy Whittaker was able to take Izzy down relatively consistently, and Izzy was kind of able to fight his way back up. Like if he can get Izzy down, Khamzat can get him down, and he's probably not going to be able to get back up very easily. So like. And now Pereira, I mean, I don't feel like I've seen I think they very intentionally have kept Pereira away from anyone who's really, really, heavy grappling because they wanted to make that Izzy fight. But they're not going to be able to protect him from grapplers forever. So it'll be interesting to see, what his ability to stand up against a guy like him is. He trains with Glover, so I mean, obviously he's training, grappling. But I mean, I feel like Pereira is still kind of a mystery just because he very much was protected to get put into that Izzy fight, and we'll see what he's got.
Yeah, right on.
I agree with you about the Izzy fight too. That's to the T. That's exactly what I thought. Like they just bring it up because the history of him. It's a great sell, but I mean they jumped over a lot. Pereira jumped over a ton of guys that I don't think he'd match well up against just for this Izzy fight.
Yeah.
So I want to just jump in and kind of wrap up the show because we're at the end of our topics. I don't want to take too much of either of you guys' time. So thank you both for jumping on. As always, Justin, thanks for joining. And Jesse, thank you so much again. As I mentioned at the beginning of the show, the whole reason why Justin and I started this channel was because of Jesse's offer at the beginning to kind of like help out a fan who wanted to create an MMA show. I've been wanting to do this for years. I think Justin has as well. So we're finally putting it together, and it's because of Jesse. So thank you. And if you guys are out there today, you kind of came on because Jesse posted something and you're here to support him. We really appreciate you coming on. If you want to support us and see what we've got on a regular basis, on a weekly basis, make sure to hit that subscribe button. And if you like the video, if you like the discussion today, feel free to hit like as well. So that's it.
I'll have you guys on the channel soon too.
Yes, awesome. There's just so much to talk about. You do a show every day. It's amazing.
I could do this all day.
Yeah.
I do this all day.
So good. I love chopping it up with you boys.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Thank you guys so much for joining, and we will see you in the next video. Take it easy.
Guys. Chat soon.
Later.
I take it easy.